Okay, welcome back. It's 4/28 of 2015. We're going to look at the next lesson from Ricoeur on praxis, but we're going to shift our emphasis from second moment to third moment because now Ricoeur wants to center his thought on objective reality and the possibility of an actual historical ontology. So we're going to look at the third moment in greater detail in this lesson on praxis. It's all going to be centered around our motivational base of attestation. That'll be the key area that he wants to discuss. And remember that motivational base of attestation is very much enjoined in that realm of interpretive truth. So it'll be enjoined with the sign model, the schema sign model. But we'll begin with that pure act of attestation. It is a characterization. The intention to do something is based on the self's characterization of truth stored in the motivational base of attestation, which includes that schema sign model. It is truth-centered. Concern over truth dominates our frenetic stance at the dialogue threshold. We are very much prepared to bring our motivational base and our sign model, our particular version of a sign model, to the dialogue threshold. It is existential because it will implicate me reflexively. It's going to reflect in the moment of return, and when it reflects in the moment of return, I will gather in unveiled new truth that will affect me as a person, as a self. It will affect my narrative of universality, and it'll affect my sign model. So it is existential, and it will include a phronesis of sincerity. It will include an actual intentionality of a sincere conviction, and not just I'm not just carrying a motivational base of a stack of descriptive propositions. No, the motivational base is primarily a truth enjoined with a sincerity of conviction. So the slant and stance of conviction is enjoined with the schema of a sign model and with that motivational base of attestation. So it is not merely propositional statement. It's also includes things from the psyche side of personality, not just the cogito, but the psyche and sincerity can be combined with the cogito and the sign model that was constructed. When we do incarnate this pure intentionality, our motivational base of attestation becomes a speech act. We always posit our positing from last lesson. Remember, we posit our praxis with an accompanying overall overarching view of meaning, an enclosure of a deeper, all-inclusive universal meaning that encloses the praxis positing. And that becomes a speech act. We do that as an avowal, and that creates the incarnation of our intentionality. So the praxis moment is always accompanied by this avowal of our motivational base. It is a speech act concerning our motivational base of attestation. Avowal includes the dialectic of that praxis knowledge we discussed last lesson, that reflexive moment when what we posit becomes concretized in history, and that unveils new truth. The new truth reflexes back toward us, and we actively gather it in. That is praxis knowledge. So it does include this dialectic of praxis knowledge when we do incarnate our intentionality. And then the avowal becomes a speech act of thematization. We are positing an overall enclosure of universal meaning to kind of enclose our praxis positing of a particularity. But in order to do that, we don't take the time to elaborate a huge volume of propositional statements concerning the overall meaning. We thematize it, and we posit a thematic enclosure. So the deeper meaning as the enclosure of our praxis is the positing of a theme that accompanies the praxis of the particular positing. So you've got the particularity of praxis being coupled with the universality of thematization. So praxis is united with thematization in the moment of incarnating our intentionality within history. That leads us to the all-important third moment when things become concrete. So if we are positing a particular praxis coupled with a universal thematization, it's going to result in a concrete historical event. Remember from last lesson, it becomes action and intentionality become event. So we end up with a concrete historical event that has been born out of this unity of particularity of praxis and universality of thematization. So the third moment of attestation must be understood as, for Ricoeur, an objectively teleological moment. There is a teleology that can be recognized in our objective reality, or objective historical reality, includes the backdrop of a teleology of that theme that we posited, that universal meaning. It is a process of a teleology that is kind of an overarching backdrop behind all historical events. So there is an objective order. Order itself contributes to the actualization of the historical event that occurs. It's a kind of occurs in accordance to what we could call a law of self-imposition. It's a way of understanding this telos as a law of self-imposed order. So it's a structural ordering that is kind of the invisible backdrop to our historical reality, and that self-imposed or self-actualizing order is a telos that will unveil its truth to us in the historical moments that we come to realize as a concretion of our positing. He says to understand this teleology is to understand it as semantics-based. It's dialectically related to the semantics of action, and it involves motive plus cause now, because causality is usually on the side of the objective reality, and motive is on the side of subjective reality. But Ricoeur says that we will reach a coincidence where motive plus cause can be overlapped and not be separated as one being subjective and the other being objective. So our teleology is actually in possession of an intentional core, and that is what is sometimes ignored by people who get involved and over-involved in ontologies. Ricoeur says that the intentional core is central to our understanding this teleology and purpose that is the backdrop to historical reality. So what is this orienting intentional core? He gives us 8 aspects, and it's going to launch us into this transition in the book, because now he wants to get involved in a belief and a faith and intention and all of those illocutionary concepts that create historical movement and decision. So he wants to get into this core of intentional orienting of structure. And first of all, it needs to be emphasized because the temporal dimension must be considered, and the quality of anticipation must be taken up, because actions take time. They're not instantaneous. A posited praxis action takes time. And it will include anticipation. Anticipation operates at all 3 moments. for Ricoeur, and he says temporality actually is a dialectic of intention and distension. Distension means to swell from within, and we'll have to see where he goes with this. He didn't tell us in this lesson, but he will elaborate on that later. But for Ricoeur, temporality is a dialectic of intention and distension. Now, the teleology as ontology will take up both intention and agent, so therefore we cannot dismiss the agent, which some scholars try to do, but it is very important for Ricoeur because the identity between historical events necessitates recognizing the identity of a same self as a identity of selfhood. So for Ricoeur, causality and the objective reality is an intentional teleology. Causality and objective reality is an intentional teleology. And he will give it a name. He's going to elaborate on it later. He's just introducing his transition in the book. We're passing through this filter now, but we'll be looking at a process of being in the making, and it will be a three-part harmony. It will harmonize ontology, the concept of ontology. It'll harmonize the phenomenology of intention and the teleology of causality. And it will not be agentless. It will give a priority to the agent, who can be the promising agent, the intending agent, the declaring agent, all of those things that can trigger illocutionary force. And so he wants that illocutionary force to be very active, and he says we cannot dismiss that illocutionary role of the agent. But it will be a transition in the book now, and we're going to be moving into a self-actualizing order as a being in the making. And it will combine ontology, intention, and causality. So he's kind of going to switch gears here, where he had been really looking at a illocutionary force. Now he wants to talk about the events, the historical events that occur when every praxis is concretized. And when we look at that, Ricoeur says there is a backdrop of self-actualizing order, and we need to understand that that isn't some metaphysical thing that is just something that we participate in. It's not us participating in an already existing metaphysical ontology. It's an ontology that is intricately enjoined with and reliant on intentionality and the interpretive knowledge of the motivational base that every self carries to the dialogue threshold. So ontology is going to be linked with all of this previous discussion on intentionality. But we are making a shift. He's going to be getting into the objective reality now, and including intentionality, but not being overly emphasizing intentionality. But it all is based on motivational base for Ricoeur. Everything for him is centered on the fact that when we approach a dialogue threshold to engage in dialogue with other selves and trying to clarify the truth and to reach a true sign model together, and also to reach a universal narrative of selfhood as consciousness, those kind of eschatological goals very much count on our position of attestation, our motivational base, of that motivational truth that we carry in the psyche. And but now he's saying that it's also going to involve what goes on with the cogito in the objective world. We're not just dealing with psyche and motivation. Now we want to take a look at cogito and objective historical reality and its concretions of historical events. So it was a great little lesson, and it is an axis flip for the author. Ricoeur he started it last lesson, but he is definitely making an axis flip here, and we're kind of transitioning from psyche to cogito, and the transition from psyche to cogito will include transition from intentionality to ontology. So from psyche to cogito, intentionality to ontology, but not in the sense that we're going to exclude the previous. We're just going to integrate the previous intentionality and lectures on intentionality. We're going to integrate them into a larger whole that will allow a new perspective on what a metaphysical ontology is. It's not a thing. It's not a metaphysical thing. It very much involves all of the previous work that Ricoeur has already introduced for us. So he will not betray himself here. He's going to integrate the previous psyche and intentionality with the cogito and objective reality, which is going to reveal to us a self-sustaining and self-actualizing order of historical reality, which he will call an order of the being in the making, a teleology of the order of being in the making. And he'll have to work now to confirm to us that he can construct his three-part harmony that he's promising. He's promising a harmony of ontology, intention, and causality. And the barrier that he wants to break through is thinkers who prioritize causality and objective metaphysical ontologies. That's not going to be his approach. He's going to very much want to integrate selfhood into his position on ontology, because for Ricoeur, prioritizing goes to the concept of selfhood, period. Everything in his system is a hermeneutic centered on the generic concept of selfhood, and that posited virtual third subject of universal narrative of consciousness. That is the betrayal of his thought right there. That initial positing of a third virtual subject of universal narrative is all about the goal of reaching the universal narrative of selfhood. And in our task, in our eschatological goal of achieving that universal narrative of selfhood, we will, of course, be working on our own personal motivational base, because we are participants in that universal narrative. And so our participation is best expressed as schema sign model. My schema sign model and your schema sign model. We're going to confront each other at the dialogue threshold, and in that moment, when we engage in dialogue, we start exchanging signs and exchanging ideas. We're going to realize that something objective can be born out of it. Something about this chain of historical events contains a backdrop of an order that can be actualized by its own ordering. It actually can take on a life of its own and a dunamis, an energy, a power of its own. And so